So today we're going to be talking about the real #1 Google ranking factor, and without doing this stuff properly, you will literally never rank on Google. The good news is this stuff is relatively simple, much simpler than this image makes it seem. And I'm going to be walking you through everything you need to know in this video so that you're executing this stuff properly so you can rank at the top of Google. However, be sure to watch to the end of the video because there is one extremely important caveat to all of this stuff. All right, let's go. So ranking factors are basically all the things that Google takes into account when they're deciding to rank web pages. And unfortunately, there are a ton of these things, and most SEOs disagree completely on which ones are the most important. Also, it's worth noting that we definitely live in an age of do all the things in SEO, a more holistic approach to SEO. Whereas before, you used to be able to get away with just really emphasizing one or two ranking factors. Now you need to do more of the things. However, there still are certain ranking factors that are much more important than others. If you're already subscribed to my YouTube channel, then you've probably seen this video already where Google basically said that backlinks were not in the top 3 ranking factors, but I conclude that they are maybe the most important ranking factor, but we'll come back to this in just a minute. And what we're going to be talking about today can really be put into 4 different categories. However, it can all be summed up into one thing, which is your content creation process. And these 4 things together really combine to create the #1 ranking factor on Google. So first up is keyword research, and really you just want to be finding things that people are actually searching for rather than creating content around some random keywords. One example of this could be writing an article for the keyword how to clean your dog versus writing an article about something like I cleaned my dog yesterday and it was cool. You really want to be targeting the main keyword or the main idea of what people are searching for when they're looking for this kind of information. So coming to this example, how to clean your dog has a search volume of about 40. And it's important to keep in mind that 0 search volume does not necessarily mean that no one is searching for it. Especially if you're using a tool or something and it shows as 0 search volume, just the fact that it's in the tool could mean that people are actually searching for it and they just don't have enough data to really put something there. So definitely don't be afraid to use your brain a little bit when you're doing this stuff. If you're a beginner, it might be useful to find keywords that are actually showing up in the tools and have some kind of search volume or even a 0 search volume, but in the tool rather than just using your brain completely on your own, just to make sure that until you really get used to this idea, that you're not going off on a tangent and getting keywords that don't really make any sense. But after you've been doing this for a while and you really understand your niche and you understand keyword research, you'll be able to find keywords that aren't in any tool at all, even for a 0 search volume, that you know that you can write an article about and people will be finding it via search. And I'm going to be doing a much more in-depth video on keyword research and topical maps very soon on my YouTube channel, so make sure you're definitely over here and subscribed if you haven't done so already. Some tools you can use to help yourself with keyword research are Ahrefs, Semrush, clicks.s, Ubersuggest, Keywords Everywhere, Answer the Public, as well as using Google Autocomplete. And probably my favorite way of doing keyword research, which is using your competitors. You can look at their XML sitemaps, or you can use a search operator like this to find keywords related to a certain topic on a competitor's website. But again, more on this coming in another video probably sometime this week. So after you've done your keyword research and you know what keyword you want to target, the next thing you need to make sure you do is to make sure you are matching search intent or user intent. And more or less what this means is that when you are writing the article for your keyword, you are matching what Google thinks the users are looking for when they are searching for it. So if we look at this keyword here, toxic backlinks, and we scroll down, we can see Semrush is writing an article, toxic backlinks, what they are and how to find them. Toxic backlinks, SEO, woe, or a load of baloney. What are toxic backlinks and how to identify a toxic backlink? Toxic backlinks, how to identify them? Toxic backlinks and disavows, a comprehensive SEO guide. So we can see the search intent here is they want some kind of guide, explains what toxic backlinks are, how to find them, how to avoid them, how to get rid of them, stuff like that. So your article needs to match this. Your article needs to be very similar in intent to all of these other articles. And there's a small difference here between search intent and user intent. Search intent is what Google thinks the searchers want to find when they're searching for the keyword, and user intent is what the user actually wants to find when they're searching for the keyword. So these two things can be a little bit different, but if Google's doing their job correctly, search intent should equal user intent. However, there will be some cases, if you've been doing this for a while, where you think that Google actually has a search intent wrong and that users are looking for something else. And in this case, it might be worthwhile to write for user intent and hope that Google will eventually get it right on a future algorithm update. Or that users will just scroll past all the stuff that Google got wrong and then click on yours because you've actually written about what they want to find. However, it's worth noting that if you do not match search intent and you only write for a user intent, there's a very good chance that you will not rank at the top. So you could always write for search intent, and then when Google gets smarter down the road and figures out that their search intent does not match user intent and they change their algorithm for that SERP, that you could go ahead and rewrite your article to the correct user intent after that. I can't really emphasize how important getting search intent right is. This is probably the biggest single mistake that I see newbie SEOs making day to day in our Facebook group and our YouTube channel when they're asking questions, is that they're just not matching what Google wants to show for a given keyword. Like I mentioned before, Google can redo search intent when they roll out a new algorithm update. So with every one of these algorithm updates, they could be changing what they want to show users for a given keyword. So if you notice ranking drops, you can always go in and check if the user intent for the keyword has changed. So you've done your keyword research, what keyword you want to rank for. You got the search intent or the user intent correct. Now it's time to actually write your content. First up, you want to make sure you cover the topic completely. So if we come back to our toxic backlinks article and we scroll down here and we notice that every one of these articles is talking about how to use link building bots or using link building bots, then we're probably going to want to cover that as well in our article. But don't just copy exactly what everyone else is. You need to be adding some unique information as well because Google has been releasing these quote helpful content updates. And you can see here the very first thing they have listed for their helpful content guidelines is that the content provides original information, reporting, research, or analysis. The keyword here being original. Just copying everyone else for your long-term rankings might not be a very good idea. And when you're writing your content, you're going to want to make sure you get a bunch of keywords and related keywords into your content without going too crazy and doing some keyword stuffing. And to help with that, you could use a tool like Surfer SEO, Writer for a cheaper alternative, Google's NLP API, which will take a little bit of setup, but ends up being what a lot of these tools are pulling this data from anyway. Or you could even come over to ChatGPT and give it a prompt like this. Give me a long list of keywords that are semantically related to toxic backlinks and should be included in my article. You can see here it spit out a list of about 50 keywords for us. And one thing to note is if you're using these tools, don't go too crazy trying to get the perfect score. This stuff's not too important. Just try to get the keywords that they mention in your article a few times, and that will most likely be good enough. So we did our keyword research and we found our keywords. We made sure we're matching search intent. We wrote our content. We made sure to cover the topic entirely, and we used some tools to make sure we were adding in some related keywords. Now it's time to do our basic on-page SEO, and you really do not need to overcomplicate this stuff. It's super easy. And all you need to do is get your main keyword in your URL, your title, your H1, and get some related keywords, maybe main keyword one time in your H2. You can see here in our toxic backlinks article up here at the title, we've got this toxic backlinks finding, identifying, and dealing with them. Then we've got the H1 here, which is exactly the same as the title. This looks like the title, but this is actually the H1. The title is really up here when you hover over the tab. And then we've got the keyword toxic backlinks in our URL slug right here as well. Then scrolling down to our first H2 right here, you can see we have toxic backlink in the H2. And when you scroll down the article, you probably see the same keyword in some H2s as well as a bunch of other related keywords. This is just another important spot to put your keyword and related keywords. But don't go crazy here. Don't do keyword stuffing. Just try to get your main keyword and related keywords in these places while still being natural. And we usually use Yoast to set these things, but you could also use Rank Math if you wanted to. So we've set the title here, we've got the URL slug here, we've got our meta description, which is still important, but not nearly as important as the other stuff, as it's more for a click-through rate. And then scrolling all the way back to the top, we've got the H1 here at the very top of the article. So these four things right here are basically your content creation process. And if you do not get these things right, you are literally just never going to rank. And if you're new to SEO and I'm explaining all this stuff, it might seem like a lot, but it's really very easy to do and it just becomes second nature and not something you even have to think about at all. But everyone can do this very easily. And so what happens is that everyone on page 1, 2, 3, even beyond, all have done this stuff pretty well. So that ends up being one other extremely important ranking factor that becomes the decider after you've done all of this stuff correctly. But we'll talk about that in just a minute. A couple other things that I want to mention that are growing in importance but are not quite as important as the other stuff I've mentioned. Number one is user engagement metrics. Because as we learned from this Google lawsuit, even though they have been denying that they are collecting user engagement metrics, we can see that they have been and that user engagement metrics are being used to rank sites on Google. Very briefly, some key things you're going to want to pay attention to are time on page. You want your users to stay on your page and reading your articles. Next up, pages per session. You want them going to other pages on your website if possible. And last up, you do not want them pogo sticking or bouncing, which means they came to your article, they read a little bit, and then they immediately went back to the Google search results and clicked on another result because your article was not satisfying them. This is probably the worst thing a user could possibly do right here. So you want to make sure that you're writing decent content. And lastly is technical SEO, and this is a duh situation for me. Technical SEO basically involves a bunch of random stuff that could just completely break your site if you're not doing it right. Some important stuff could be crawlability, robots.txt, URL structure, site speed, 301 redirects, duplicate content, or even more important, keyword cannibalization, server response errors like 404s, core web vitals, etc., etc., etc. Because no matter how good the rest of your SEO is, if your site is just broken, then Google is not going to rank you, right? If you're trying to race your car, but you turn the car on, it just doesn't even turn on, or it's having some crazy problem and the wheels won't spin or something like that, right? So even though it's a duh situation, it's definitely worth mentioning as well. You should definitely be doing some technical SEO audits from time to make sure you don't have any big problems. So let's pretend that we got all this beginner stuff down and we know how to do basic keyword research, search intent, content, on-page optimization. Then we made sure that we are getting decent user engagement metrics and our site isn't broken. So if you've done the basics correctly and your site is actually working, there's one extremely important ranking factor left, and that is backlinks. But if you want more information on that, go ahead and watch this video here because there's a lot to unpack. Alright guys, that's it for now. Go ahead and give this video and give me a sub if you're enjoying the content, and give me a follow on Twitter and LinkedIn as I'm getting active on these platforms as well. Alright, bye bye.